Coming up on this Wednesday edition of Daybreak, the wait is almost over. Korea kick off their World Cup campaign in 1 hour's time against Russia. The day's other Group H match sees Belgium beat Algeria 2-1. President Park Geun-hye and her Uzbek counterpart agree to expand their political and economic cooperation and work closely for new joint ventures on energy development. Plus, the OECD warns the Korean government to consider the costs and benefits of accumulating huge piles of foreign currency reserves. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Wednesday, June 18th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you are tuned in to Daybreak. The wait is almost over. Korea will finally get their 2014 World Cup on the road in just under 1 hour's time. The coach and the squad say they are ready to take on the Russians and hopefully they'll put 3 early points in the bag before their next 2 group games against Algeria and Belgium. Although it's still very early here in Korea, 6 a.m. in the morning, in fact, the cheers and excitement are already reaching fever pitch. To check out the atmosphere for ourselves, we are going to connect live to our Kwon So-a, who is standing by at one of the venues for us. There appears to be thousands of people gathered for the team there.
Good morning, Mark, on this exciting first match day for South Korea playing against Russia this Wednesday. Now here at COEX in southern Seoul, you can hear it's very loud, it's packed with people, all hoping for the Red Devils to win against Russia. People are screaming here right now as they are already practicing. I'll be here later in an hour. Now, I've been here since very early. I've been past 4, and already people have filled the front rows in front of the stage here. There are a lot of young people, but also families standing far behind big screens installed in intervals here so that everyone can see the action unfolding in Brazil. Now, around 1,000 police are deployed to make sure it's and hundreds of volunteers make sure it's and also with drinks and snacks and little events and tents set up here. So more than 100,000 people are expected at some 26 main cheering locations across the nation. Mark?
Well, so it's extremely loud there. Party central down there. We can hear the songs. We could hear most of what you said, I suppose. But there's word that Korean singing sensation and Gangnam Style star Psy is performing there.
Well, Mark, it's not an exaggeration to say that this is going to be one of the main events here. And actually, I'm hearing that Psy's music is playing here behind me right now. And yes, Psy is here, and everyone, the atmosphere is great here. We didn't expect Psy to come at this time already, but he is here, so it's going to be a fun event. It is one of the main events today, but also other famous Korean stars like Girls' Day, Ladies' Code, Sia, Lee Jung, Park Hyun-bin have already heated up the atmosphere, and more is to come as we count down the minutes up to the actual game in around an hour. Now, if you're at home and want to join the crowd here, it's not too late if you take the subway, since all lanes on Yeongdong-daedo Street in the direction from Samsung Station to COEX are being restricted, that is, until 2 p.m. Now, it would be a good idea to leave your cars at home, And this has been Kwon So-a reporting live at Yeongdong-daedo, where Psy is performing here, and he will be performing his new single Hangover later on, live for the first time. And I'll be back with more when the games begin at 7 a.m. here at Yeongdong-daedo. Back to you, Mark.
Well, thank you very much. So I do enjoy the atmosphere there before the game. It looks like a lot of fun. Now, on to the rest of the day's news, shall we? Korea and Uzbekistan have agreed to push for new joint energy projects as the countries seek to deepen and diversify their political, economic and cultural ties. The deals were inked during a meeting Tuesday between Korean President Park Geun-hye and her Uzbek counterpart in Tashkent. Our Choi Yoo-sun, who is travelling with the president, filed this report.
President Park and her Uzbek counterpart Islam Karimov agreed to continue cooperation in joint projects worth more than $8 billion, such as Uzbek's gas field development and chemical complex construction. They also sought ways to expand their economic cooperation in the areas of energy, textiles, and transportation. Seoul asked for Tashkent's support in helping Korean businesses take part in a $4 billion Uzbek gas and processing plant development and in the construction of a $300 million solar plant in Samarkand.
한국 기업들은 우즈베키스탄 경제의 성장 잠재력에 주목하고 대규모 자원 개발 및 건설 인프라 투자 등 다양한 분야의 참여를 희망하고 있습니다.
Korea helping to develop an Uzbek electronic government administrative system and Korean firms participating in an Uzbek highway construction were also discussed.
Korea is a strategic partner that has built an immense economy and knowledge in science and technology.
Seoul signed a deal to build a textile complex in Uzbekistan, which is the world's #6 cotton producer. The Uzbek leader also endorsed President Park's trust-building process with North Korea, as well as a Eurasia initiative reconnecting energy and logistics infrastructure from the Far East to Europe to lay the groundwork for regional peace and to change the global economic system. The next stop on President Park's Eurasia Initiative campaign tour is Samarkand, a city that was at the heart of the Silk Road. She'll then travel to Kazakhstan Wednesday for a 3-day state visit. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News, Tashkent.
Now, while President Park's in Uzbekistan and Central Asia, there's a political firestorm surrounding her pick for Prime Minister over some controversial remarks he's made over the years. The presidential office, in fact, has postponed submitting his confirmation motion. And as our Ji Myung-gil reports, lawmakers are likely to make the process extremely unpleasant and uncomfortable for the Prime Minister-designate.
Prime Minister nominee Moon Chang-geuk's apology for controversial remarks he made years back about Japan's colonization of the Korean peninsula doesn't go far enough for the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy, or NPAD.
Japan's colonization remains the biggest scar for the Korean people. We cannot nominate a prime minister who has a distorted view of history. If the government proceeds with the confirmation hearings, it will be criticized for lacking common sense.
Should the presidential office push ahead with Moon's nomination, some NPAD lawmakers say they would consider boycotting the confirmation hearing in protest. And the negative views of the Prime Minister nominee aren't reserved for the opposition party. 6 first-term lawmakers of the ruling Saenuri Party have issued statements calling for Moon to withdraw his nomination, while a number of more experienced lawmakers have openly criticized him. But the ruling party's floor leader, Lee Won-gu, plans to go ahead with the confirmation process.
There seem to be suspicions and doubts about the Prime Minister nominee, but the National Assembly has a duty to proceed with the confirmation hearing and evaluate whether the candidate is suitable.
The National Assembly will ultimately hold a plenary vote on Moon's nomination, which would require the attendance of at least 143 lawmakers. To be confirmed, Moon would need at least half of those in attendance to vote yes. Once the National Assembly receives a formal request calling for a confirmation hearing, lawmakers are required to hold one within 20 days. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
The trials for the crew of the sunken Sewol-ho ferry continue in the southwestern city of Gwangju. On Tuesday, one of the 15 crew members on trial pled guilty to charges of abandonment and violation of a Ship Safety Act. The lawyer for the engineer, only identified by his family name Son, asked the judge to show his client a degree of mercy as he had attempted suicide during the investigation and was in poor health. 3 other crew members accused of the same crimes denied the charges. Captain Lee Jun-sok and 10 other crew members also appeared in court, but all denied the charges against them. The 69-year-old skipper and 3 other senior crew members have been charged with murder by willful negligence and could potentially face the death penalty if found guilty. The Sewol-ho ferry sunk in waters off Korea's southwestern coast on April 15th, killing almost 300 people, most of them high school students. The Abe administration in Japan has presented a draft statement that would effectively allow Japan to exercise the long prohibited right to come to the military aid of an ally under attack. The move sparked instant protests on the streets of Tokyo, with over 5,000 people gathering at a downtown park to urge the government not to revise Article 9 of the Constitution, which prohibits Japan from the right to this so-called collective self-defense. The speed of Abe's move seems to reflect his desire to have his cabinet approve the change before the current Diet session, the Parliament session, ends on Sunday. The two governing party secretary-generals will discuss the schedule for the cabinet's approval of the statement. But Abe's Liberal Democratic Party coalition party, New Komoto, says there may be hard to come to agreement, in fact, by Friday, as its party members have not even started discussions on the draft.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, the OECD is advising Korea to carefully consider both the costs and benefits of accumulating even more foreign currency reserves. It says that collecting record stockpiles of cash, like Korea is doing for a rainy day, is a very expensive form of insurance. Our Hwang Jie has this report.
The OECD has told Korea to take a careful approach to more foreign reserves. In its latest report on the Korean economy released Tuesday, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development said that foreign exchange reserves are a costly way to fight against foreign exchange volatility. It said that's because foreign reserves are typically invested in safe assets with low returns. Instead, the international organization recommended swap agreements that allow related parties to exchange cash flows for a set period of time. Korea's central bank said earlier this month that the nation's foreign reserves reached an all-time high of over $360 billion as of the end of last month, marking the seventh largest foreign reserves in the world, following China, Japan, and Switzerland. The OECD report went on to say that the Korean economy is on an upturn trend after a period of subdued output growth in 2011 and 2012, but added that easing monetary policies and short-term extra budget could take place. This when threats to the domestic economy, like the nation's household debt problem and instability in emerging markets, continue to weigh on Korea. The OECD expects the Korean economy to grow 4% this year and 4.2% next year, and added a strong Korean won trend could benefit local consumers by reducing prices of imported goods and rebalancing toward domestic demand, one of the main economic agendas of the current administration. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Now, staying with financial news now, and the value of Korea's stock market has fallen one notch compared to last year to settle now at the world's 12th largest market. Some are attributing this turn to the comparative rise of the Indian market and so-called Modi-nomics. So Na Hyung-kyung tells us more.
The combined market capitalization of Korea's publicly listed companies crossed $1.2 trillion as of the end of last week. Citing Bloomberg data, Yonhap News reports that Korea took one step back from last year when its market was the 11th biggest in the world. Analysts say capital is flowing to other emerging economies in Asia, especially to India, where new Prime Minister Narendra Modi is pledging sweeping economic reforms. Thanks to his so-called Modi-nomics, India's benchmark Sensex has jumped 19% so far this year, with the total market value surging nearly 30%. Korea's main index, the Kospi, edged down 1% this year, and although total market capitalization went up by 4%, the actual increase will be lower because of the strengthening won. The Korean market currently makes up 1.9% of the global market. That's down 0.1 percentage points from last month and down 0.4 percentage points from August 2011 when it was at its highest. Experts say foreign buyers are moving their money away from Korea because they feel that Samsung Electronics, the major player on the Kospi, is not pushing for growth as strongly as they could. Another reason is said to be the weaker than expected performances by Korea's usual strongholds, the shipbuilding and petrochemical industries, which rely heavily on exports to China. 나현경, Arirang News.
Now, it wasn't all that long ago that we were talking about the booming Korean film industry, but it looks like after a record-breaking 2013 with lots of fantastic movies, this year Korean movies have lost a bit of their luster. Shin Se-min reports.
Korean movies have been less popular than Hollywood movies in the domestic market so far this year, turning over a trend that's developed in recent years. No Tears for the Dead and Man on High Heels are Korean movies that were released earlier this month and star well-established actors like Chang Dong-gun and Cha Sung-won. Despite being produced by entertainment giants CJ Entertainment and Lotte Entertainment, they have failed to receive much attention. According to the Korean Film Council on Tuesday, No Tears for the Dead and Man on High Heels have so far attracted 570,000 and 310,000 viewers respectively, which pales in comparison to the Hollywood action movie Edge of Tomorrow, which has drawn 3 million. In 2012, ticket sales for domestic movies surpassed the 100 million mark for the first time, and for 2 consecutive years, Korean films were more popular than those from Hollywood. In the first half of 2014, Hollywood movies got the better of Korean films by 5.6 percentage points. Experts say Korean movies are suffering from the lack of a major hit. Miss Granny, released in January, is the only one that qualifies so far after drawing more than 4 million viewers. There were 4 of these super hits all of last year. Film critic Chung Ji-wook thinks the reason may be a lack of creativity. Whereas films last year tapped into creative concepts, he says domestic films so far this year have depended more on their star power. With the year nearly half over, there are concerns that the domestic film market may not surpass the 100 million mark. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, you'd be hard-pressed to see anyone at all walking around Seoul wearing Korea's traditional hanbok clothing these days. But not that long ago, Koreans from all walks of life wore it on a day-to-day basis. Park Ji-won reports on a new centre that's been set up that aims to breathe life into the hanbok.
People wearing traditional Korean hanbok clothing gather at Seoul Station 2A4, a former train station turned art gallery. They have descended here in their special attire to celebrate the launch of the Hanbok Advancement Center, a governmental center with an aim of promoting the traditional clothing.
We are very grateful that a center whose sole aim is to promote hanbok has finally been established.
With the establishment of the Hanbok Center, the government hopes it pumps new life into the nation's dying culture of wearing the traditional clothing.
The center aims to make hanbok, which is the symbol of Korean culture, something the public wants to buy and wear, so that ultimately we can share the culture with the world.
The center will launch diverse projects to promote hanbok, including hosting educational classes on the traditional attire and holding designer contests that discover new takes on hanbok. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And a good Wednesday morning to you all as we kick things off with a big match set to take place in less than an hour now. Korea versus Russia. The match we've all been waiting for in Group H will kick off at 6 p.m. local time and 7 a.m. Korea time. Now with the match set to take place in Gyeobu, the South Korean national football team looks to get a good start in their first group stage match against Russia. While Russian head coach Fabio Capello looked very confident in the press conference yesterday, manager Hong Myung-bo looked relaxed, stating that he will not play to lose. While Russia is the favorite going into this match, Korea has won the first group stage match in each of their last 3 World Cups. And now moving on to the other matches that took place earlier today, including Algeria versus Belgium in Group H. Let's take a look at the highlights. Now, of course, Belgium, the heavy favorites going into this match, but in the first half, Algeria gets the penalty call as Sofiane Feghouli converts the spot kick in the 25th minute for the 1-0 lead. Looked like Algeria was going to get the upset win, but Man United's Fellaini sends one past the goalkeeper 1-1. Draw's not so bad, right? Well, not so fast as Dries Mertens as he gives Belgium the 2-1 lead in the 88th minute and the win 2-1. Meanwhile, Brazil and Mexico facing off in their second match in Group A. Mexican goalkeeper Guillermo Ochoa with several key saves in the match as both nations surprised everyone with a 0-0 draw. So now that Brazil and Mexico match ended in a 0-0 draw, both nations now have a win and a draw, which is good for 4 points. Now, in order for them to be guaranteed a spot in the next round, would have to be at least a draw, as Brazil will face off against Cameroon and Mexico will face off with the stronger Croatian side next. And now with that finishing things off, despite North Korea not qualifying for the 2014 Brazil World Cup, it doesn't mean they're not enjoying some of the big matches, although it might be taped matches. The Italy-England match, which took place over the weekend, was aired on the country's official Korean Central Television over a day after the match ended. Meanwhile, the last time North Korea qualified for the World Cup was back in 2010 when the nation lost all 3 group stage matches in South Africa, scoring 1 goal while giving up just 12. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following this Wednesday morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim standing by at the news center. Very good morning, Eunice.
Good morning to you, Mark. The Sunni insurgency in Iraq is closing in on the capital of Baghdad as fighting has broken out in the city of Baquba less than 45 minutes away. It began with a large-scale attack on a police station in West Baquba on Tuesday. Police and local officials say the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant militants have made great advances, but the city has not yet fallen. Extra troops were also dispatched to protect oil refineries. The Baiji refinery north of Baghdad was shut down, with foreign workers being evacuated by helicopter. This as the Nouri al-Maliki government is rejecting calls by Western governments to reach out to Sunnis in the country and instead pointing to major Sunni power Saudi Arabia for supporting ISIL financially and morally, a charge Saudi Arabia has rejected. 15 people are dead and 12 women abducted following a raid on 2 coastal villages in Kenya. The attack comes just days after a strike on hotels and a police station at nearby Mpeketoni that left some 50 people killed. Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta is blaming local political networks for the fresh deadly attacks, though Somalia's Al-Shabaab group had earlier said it was responsible. And new developments in the 2012 U.S. Embassy strike in Libya. The U.S. military and FBI have captured a key suspect in the attack that had killed 4 people, including the American ambassador to Libya. Ahmed Abu Khattala was captured in a secret weekend raid during an extremely tightly held Special Forces operation. U.S. President Barack Obama said, quote, "It is important for us to send a message to the world that when Americans are attacked, no matter how long it takes, we will find and bring those to justice." The embassy strike took place shortly after the September 11th attacks. And finally, China and the UK are set to boost business ties to the tune of $30 billion. China's Premier Li Keqiang is in London, where he is expected to announce the set of 40 separate agreements. Included in the deals could be investments in major infrastructure in the UK and also span the energy, education and finance sectors. More than 200 business leaders are joining the Premier on his 3-day trip.
Okay, those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Best of luck to the Korea team in their first game in the World Cup against Russia. That kicks off in just over 30 minutes, as does Korea today. So if you can't see the match, make sure you tune into that for all the latest. Everyone here at Daybreak will be back at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.